Good evening and welcome to the February edition of the Town of Kent Zoning Board of Appeals. Before we begin our agenda this evening, please join me in rising, pledging allegiance to the flag of our country. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. There's been an agenda change for this evening. Item number 2, Positive Science Center, has been moved to item number 3. So the first application up for this evening is that of Stephanie Mount, 42 Laurie Court, Carmel. Hello. Hello. It's like the game show. Enter and sign in, please. Okay, why don't you tell us why you're here this evening?
I submitted a renewal for my accessory apartment. It's where, I think this is a third or fourth renewal in the 20 years we've lived here. My elderly mother lives there, and I need to renew it every 5 years, so I've come before you for a renewal, please.
Okay, great. Any comments from the board on this matter?
No, it's a standard renewal. She has been here before, and we do have the fire certificate on file.
All right, with that said, do I have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, you can follow up.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, stop in anytime after tomorrow and see your feet, and we'll process that and get that closed out again.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the help.
Have a
You're
good
welcome.
day.
Have a good night.
Have a good night.
All right, next item up on the agenda is that of Dale Thomas Madison, 23 Harvard Drive. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm here for request.
Sign in first.
Okay. Here for a request for variance.
Do you have any green cards here?
I think he has them in his
You have
hand.
your-
I was going to ask him.
The receipts?
Your return receipts?
Yes.
Yeah, let's have those first before you get started.
There you go.
Okay, thanks.
All right, Mr. Madison, why don't you tell us why you're here this evening?
So we would like to put a 400 square foot addition to our home. It's in what the town considers the backyard, but we consider it the side yard because the orientation of the house relative to the street and the front door, that's how we figured it, like it's the side yard, but the town sees it as the backyard. And we just want to add more space to our current living situation and just shift things around internally. We're not adding any septic. We're just taking our 2 bedrooms, moving them to the new addition, and redoing the other 2 rooms to expand our living room and our kitchen.
Okay, well, we've had an opportunity to review the documentation that you provided and the drawings. You have plenty of room, no
Yes.
doubt about that. So with that, I'll open it up to the board members. Any commentary? Okay. There being none, Do I have a motion to approve?
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, sir. You can follow up with the building department.
Thank you very much.
Good luck with your addition.
Good luck.
Good luck.
There's somebody that's sitting here.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Frank J. Smith III from the Law Office of Schilling and Smith on behalf of the applicant, the Positive Science Center, Inc., a New York State recognized and 501c3 designated not-for-profit corporation. With me this evening is the Positive Science Center's president, Dr. John Ryder. The property in question is located at 170 Waywayanda Court in the town of Kent. It is known as tax map number 44-1-8. It consists of roughly 5.69 acres and is located in the town's R80 zoning district. The relief requested this evening is an interpretation of section 77-7C5 of the Town of Kent zoning code, and specifically the definition of Ilio-Masonry Institute. Section 77-7C5 states, special uses are permitted subject to the approval by the planning board in accordance with the provisions of section 77-59 of this chapter. Section 77-59 outlines the planning board standards in evaluating a special use application. Section C5 continues that one special use is that of the Ilio-Masonry institutions other than correctional institutions, drug rehabilitation centers, or institutions of the insane, but excluding administrative headquarters or branch office buildings thereof, subject to the following requirements: minimum lot area of 5 acres, and that no building, parking, loading area, or part thereof can be located within 150 feet of any street or lot line. This code section also requires conformance with section 77-60, which is planning board site plan approval. In support of the application, this office submitted a memorandum of law, a client affidavit, a survey, letter of support from neighbors, and the definition of Ilio-Masonry from Black's Law Dictionary and Merriam-Webster. This evening, I have also provided to the board a letter from the Internal Revenue Service designating the Positive Science Center as a 501c3 tax-exempt public charity, a letter from the New York State Attorney General Charities Bureau recognizing the Positive Science Center as a registered not-for-profit organization, a New York State exempt organization certificate, a copy of the New York State Department of State Division of Corporations information page showing that the Positive Science Center is a domestic not-for-profit corporation and that it is in the charitable not-for-profit category. I also submitted the corporation's business action plan and a copy of the organization's building loan agreement specifically to construct the Positive Science Center's, quote, headquarters and conference learning center located at 170 Waywayanda Court. A brief history. In September of 2016, the Positive Science Center Incorporated was filed with New York State as a not-for-profit charitable corporation. Thereafter, in October 2016, the Positive Science Center purchased the subject property. It is important to note that title to the parcel is vested in the corporation's name. In September 2018, the organization obtained a building loan from Walden Savings Bank. The purpose of this loan was to specifically construct the entity's headquarters and conference learning center located at 170 Waywayanda Court. Following construction of the headquarters, the applicant applied to the planning board for a special use permit under section 77-7C5 of the code. The planning board subsequently referred the matter to this board for an interpretation of this code section. Tonight, this board must use its interpretive powers to determine whether the applicant meets the definition of Elo Masonry Institute under section 77-7C5 of the town code. For the foregoing reasons, I contend that the applicant meets this definition. As you're aware, the town code permits Elo Masonry institutions subject to the standards of planning board review and site plan approval. Black's Law Dictionary defines Elo Masonry as, quote, of, relating to, or assisted by charity, or not-for-profit. Merriam-Webster defines Elo Masonry as, quote, of, relating to, or supported by charity. Black's Law Dictionary defines institution as, quote, an established organization, especially one of a public character. Merriam-Webster defines institution as, quote, an established organization or corporation, especially of a public character. The Positive Science Center is a New York State designated non-for-profit corporation. Not-for-profit corporations are governed by New York State not-for-profit corporations law. Section 102(3-A) of the New York State not-for-profit corporations law defines charitable corporation as, quote, any corporation formed or for the purposes of this chapter deemed to be formed for charitable purposes. Section 102(3-B) further defines charitable purposes as, quote, one or more of the following purposes: charitable, educational, religious, scientific, literary, cultural, or for the prevention of cruelty to children or animals. Additionally, the Positive Science Center is an Internal Revenue Service designated 501c3 organization. This is a tax-exempt status. The IRS states that the exempt purposes set forth in section 501c3 are charitable, religious, educational, scientific, literary, testing for public safety, fostering national or international amateur sports competition, and preventing cruelty to children or animals. The IRS continues that the term charitable is used in its generally accepted legal sense and includes relief to the poor, the distressed, or the underprivileged, advancement of religion, advancement of education or science, erecting or maintaining public buildings, monuments, or works, among a number of other recognized aims. In addition, the IRS states that organizations described in section 501c3 are commonly referred to as, quote, charitable organizations. As stated in the Positive Science Center's business action plan, the organization was established to study and accumulate knowledge about positive psychology in order to offer people numerous practical ways to utilize this information to promote greater well-being, personal achievement, and in general, to have a positive impact on individuals, groups, and communities. The business action plan outlines the organization's history, non-for-profit business model, and a number of workshops, lectures, summits, cultural festivals, and special events it intends to conduct as a charitable institution. When taken together, it is clear that this scenario is the proverbial square peg fitting into the square hole. The Positive Science Center is recognized by New York State and the Internal Revenue Service as a charitable organization. This fact is evidenced by the documents submitted in support of the application. Additionally, section 77-7C5 envisions this specific use in the town code, subject to review standards and site plan approval vested with the planning board. For these reasons, I respectfully contend that the applicant fits squarely within this definition of Elo Masonry Institution and that this board should render an interpretation in the applicant's favor. I thank you for the opportunity to present, and Dr. Ryder and I are available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. For the record, once again, please state who is the current owner of the property.
Positive Science Center, Inc.
And that has not changed.
Correct. And I do have a copy of the deed with me, if the board would like that for the record.
Sure.
do also want the record to note, though, that when the application to build this property, although it's contradicted in your building loan agreement, was for a single-family home, not for a conference or learning center. And the document you gave me tonight, which clearly indicates that between you and your bank, it was agreed it was for a conference center, at no time during the building process was this ever anything more than a single-family home located at that address. And you yourself stood before me and said it was a humble cabin in the woods for yourself. Correct?
May I?
Yeah.
I would like to respectfully state that I understand that there is a history with this parcel.
Okay, I just wanted that on the record, that's all.
I know that there was a previous application here that, in my opinion, and to be as respectful to all of the parties involved, I believe was misguided. I think this board rendered the correct decision as it related to home occupation. With that said, that matter has been adjudicated, and the issue before the board tonight is narrow in the sense that it is an interpretation of this particular section of the code and what illo missionary institution means.
Okay, well, I'm glad it appears to be a bit simpler coming from your side, but it's a little bit more convoluted coming from my side. So we now have on record that when the original application was made to build, it was approved for a single-family dwelling. Okay, possibly a small office to see patients from time to time. I was going to ask you what changed since then, since you made that application. What's changed?
I think that Dr. Ryder and the Positive Science Center's goal the entire time was to construct this structure as their corporate headquarters. I don't know if advice given at the time of initial applications was correct or not. That's why we submitted to the planning board for their special use permit. We believe that that use fits squarely within what the code provides. And again, tonight, the question before the board is related to the interpretation of illo missionary.
Yep, I understand that. You know, and in pursuit of that, I think it would be prudent that the board get a copy of the Articles of Incorporation
I have those too.
regarding the Positive Science Center.
I may add that the goal of the construction was to build a simple 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom house that could be used for that purpose. When I went in front of the planning board, they never asked me what my plans were for the house. Their only concern was about the literal structure of the beams and the structure of the house and what would be the environmental impact of building the house there. I was more than willing to discuss my plans of using the house, but literally the planning board never inquired, never asked, and there was never any discussion of it.
You have to understand, they went by the application that you submitted. So they will go, your application was for a single-family home, so that would be their scope, making sure that it met the requirements. Therefore, all the building standards that were done on that property were done on a residential. All the Board of Health approvals were done as a residential. So it wasn't that they neglected to ask you the right questions. Perhaps you neglected to fill out the proper
If I may,
application.
the property is located in a residential zoning district.
Correct.
Other than the planning board's review requirements of a special use permit, there are only 2 dimensional requirements: minimum 5 acre and 150 feet away from a road or a lot line for parking, building, etc. I don't know how important it is, being that the code does not define what type of structure constitutes an illo missionary institution, that the application was made in the way it was many, many years ago.
I don't think, it's not a structure that defines the Masonry institution. There are a lot of components that go into that. And that is what we're trying to find out this evening. So do you have a copy of the
Yes.
Articles of Incorporation?
I do. And
We actually have a few requests, so maybe it's best to put them all together and have them submitted at the same
Sure,
time
yeah.
for a review.
If there are a number of items that the board would like to see, I have no problem respectfully requesting an adjournment of this evening in order to provide you with those documents you'd like to review in advance of a decision.
Okay.
I think what we'd like to do instead of an adjournment, we'll put the request to you of what we need. We would ask how much time you need to get them to us. We can then move forward and then render our decision to you at that point by mail. But we, in all fairness, want to give the information a look to make sure so that we can understand, is it an animosity or not?
Understood.
In our opinion.
And I do recognize that there's a number of materials that I think would help the board that I provided to you this evening. So I completely understand your desire to review in greater detail.
So
Great. Yeah, you can go on.
So, I guess one of the things I'd like to say is the tax returns for 2021 and 2022, and then his corporate accountant, whoever that is, just to break out for us from that as a cover sheet, all donations received those years, and then what percentage and to whom were the donations, or, excuse me, contributions made to charities from that received amount.
So I do think that the Form 990 and the Char 500, which is the New York State required filing for not-for-profit corporations, would suffice. I know that in my records, I have a number of documents related to donations that were made.
Right.
Again, I wasn't sure that the board would like to see them. I also didn't go through and redact certain sensitive information.
And that's why I figured it'll give you the opportunity, and then you can let us know how long you think it's going to take to
I can get-
compile.
yeah.
And then get it to us, and we'll review it.
Yeah.
I think it's entirely possible to have this to you so that we can be on for the meeting next month.
I would also like, because this information may not be on the Articles of Incorporation, I would also like to see a list of board members and their titles.
If I may add, the building was supposed to be a place where people can just come in a very informal setting to enjoy this place that I found at the end of Way Onda. At that time, it was nothing except a field of garbage. I went in there with my bare hands and the help of friends, cleaned up the area, and filed all the permits that people advised me to file, and I filed them because they filed them for me. I didn't know that something had to be added. The building is a 4-bedroom residential house. It wasn't supposed to be a school or anything else, so that it could serve the interests that we were intending it for.
Is your
agree.
facility open to the general public? at no charge?
Absolutely. I invite everyone. And
Well, is it open to the general public at
yes,
no
of
charge?
course, of course.
Okay.
I have an open door policy. As long as you're knocking, you're welcome to come in.
Did you have any case?
Yeah, you mentioned the Char 500. I did go to the Bureau of Charities website, and I got your Char 500 for 2020.
Yes.
I did not see the 2021 filing, which I would think would have been filed by now. So,
Should be in there.
yeah,
but
maybe they just didn't put it up on the website, but if we could get the 2021.
We can absolutely do that. I would think that I'm not the only one with much faith in New York State's ability to timely update items like that. So I will certainly request that of the Positive Science Center's accountant and provide it to you.
Yeah, and similarly, and I think this has already been asked for, the 2020 tax return was on the Department of Charities website, but not the 2021, so.
And I would also point out for your own research and your limited free time is that the organization is on GuideStar. If you're familiar with GuideStar, that is a website that compiles information related to non-for-profits. That's where a lot of 990 type information is found. So I would also recommend checking there. Again, I don't know if it's completely up to speed, and we'll
And
certainly
that's why I
cross-reference.
request to you directly, just because I don't want to waste any time.
Of course.
And again, I just want to stipulate, when you have the accountant break that out. I do want to see by year charities received and then how much of that went out
Okay.
Went out?
as donations to the needy or to organizations.
I don't support others. The donations were towards the operation of the Positive Science Center.
Which is the charitable institution.
So the donations that come into you, I'm just trying to equate it to like a United Way or something. You're receiving
No,
donations. None go out?
No.
No, it's very different, and it is more common than you may expect. This is the 501c3 designated entity doing, and again,
And that's
To
where we
get-
walk a fine line with.
to get into the
animosity.
minutia of how the state and the feds characterize charitable, it's under the guise of a non-for-profit corporation.
Right.
Those are the laws at which we are governed under, and those are the laws at which we comply with. I can think of a number of local charitable organizations that do their own work and then do not donate to other organizations, for example.
Okay. Well, for purposes of this exercise, we'll review the documents you submit, the charities that come in, and so none go out.
I don't think that's quite relevant. I mean, I'm not sure how much the Humane Society donates to other humane societies.
Well, but if the money comes into Humane Society, there's a clear tracking of how much of that money that comes in goes to maintain the dogs, the food, the
Operating
shelter,
expenses, of
operating
course.
expenses. You know, many of these organizations have a set percentage out front that they'll say no more than X percent can be administrative. The rest must be accounted for and put back into the charity or for
And
charitable
I think the 990 filing will certainly cover all of those questions.
Yeah, also, I saw a reference somewhere to the fact that you get government grants in addition to getting contributions as a 501c3. Which government agencies have given you grants?
None yet, but I've applied. So now it's a question of time and opportunity. Although we did get a small grant during the pandemic, I think of $7,000 from the U.S. government. Wasn't a grant from our
Was that part of
proposal.
the PPP or something?
I don't think it was actually.
That was part of the
It
pandemic.
was one of those, but we submitted as a nonprofit corporation, and they gave us a small donation.
Yeah, that's, okay.
Yeah, that was pandemic related.
That was
That wasn't for
pandemic,
you, that
probably
wasn't for your
covered,
charitable purposes.
An administrative salary or
No.
portion of
And no
or
one
overhead.
at my institute takes a salary, not me, not any of the people that have come there. No one takes any money. It's there because what I have done with my life is create a tremendous amount of intellectual property. And that is in the form of psychology, things that I teach people, things that I offer people. And the idea here is to have a place where my knowledge will be deposited so that generations in the future will be able to take advantage of the intellectual property and pass it around. Most of the work that I will do through the Institute will be online, through the website. But that website has a bunch of computers that may need to be stored in the house to keep them safe. That's part of the Institute's purpose.
I mean, I would think that's, under a desk though, right? I mean, servers don't take up that much space in today's day and age. Yeah, we're not talking
No,
about that.
and I certainly appreciate the board's curiosity. I know that you do not receive applications like this every day, but again, we are here for the limited purpose
Yes.
of interpreting this particular provision of the code and whether or not we meet the definition of illomisonary institution.
Yeah,
And
but-
again, I'm sorry. go ahead.
No, I was just saying, at least to me, I mean, part of that definition is not just what is the entity, which you've explained very well, but I think it's also what is the entity doing? What is this property being used for? And is that property being used for those charitable purposes? And that's where I'm getting a little bit hung up here.
And I may take a more reductive view of this than the board does. If the legislative body of the town of Kent wanted to outline specifics for an Elo Masonry Institute, they can certainly do that by amending the zoning code.
We're actually in discussion for that now, so that,
Okay.
again, that's
Well, my
possible.
rights are vested by being here today, so that makes me feel pretty good.
But in terms of the use, I mean, and I'm new up here, so I wasn't here when you were here 2 years ago. But I have read at least part of the record. And, I am troubled, as has been alluded to already, by the change in the story, if I can put it that way. I don't mean to be pejorative, but, the story. Because first it was a residence, then it was a residence with your office for the private practice of psychology and an artist studio. Now it's for charitable purposes. Is it solely for charitable purposes? Or, I mean, Dr. Ryder, is this a second home for you as well as it being the headquarters of the institution?
I have my offices in my home in New York City, and I come up here to offer my knowledge. I write, I have meetings with people in the house once in a while, but I've kept it extremely minimal because I'm trying to do it according to whatever regulations there are. So, no, I haven't been using it entirely as much as I would like to. In fact, I have some donors that are very significant amounts of money that might support me if I clear up the legal mess that I've created here unintentionally. And so I do want to go into a full swing operation, but until the board gives me permission to do so, I feel like my hands are a bit tied.
And again, the board giving permission to do what it is that the Positive Science Center is looking to do is the planning board. Tonight, we are here for the limited purpose of the interpretation of Elo Masonry Institute and that particular section of the code. There are a number of restrictions that the planning board can place on this through their processes of special use permit application. The framers of the town code envisioned this use being permitted by special use. There very well may be open questions as to why that code was drafted the way that it was with such minimal requirements. But again, that's not for us, that's not for this board.
But the full-blown use, though, I mean, and I appreciate your hands have been somewhat tied, but once you, assume you get over that hurdle, and it's, what you're envisioning it to be. It appears, and sort of highlighted by what you gave us today in terms of, I don't know if it's a business plan, but, explaining what you envision. It looks like there are all kinds of activities that really don't seem to be in furtherance of what I've heard you talk about this evening, kind of a bed and breakfast, a wedding space.
I respectfully
be used for all
disagree.
kinds of things to generate revenue, but I'm not sure that those things are really in furtherance of what you've explained this evening to be the purpose of the corporation.
Well, I think it's very clear, not just on our testimony, but with our submission, that the Positive Science Center is a New York State not-for-profit corporation, charitable in nature, 501c3 designated, tax exempt by the IRS, charitable in nature. I think reasonable people can question as to what constitutes charity. I think a lot of people think of Toys for Tots and, a number of other, veterans organizations, for example. But that is not to say that the proposed use does not fall within what is defined as a charitable organization by New York State and the federal government.
Okay.
I think, yeah, we'll move on.
Yeah.
To your point, though, I mean, even in the business, and we won't go any further, but even in the business plan, you have a bed and breakfast option where no other official activities are planned except renting a bedroom for $100 or $200 a night.
And that would be a donation from somebody looking to come and donate and stay at the center's headquarters. And also, as it relates to single-family residence, the way that this code is drafted is that any structure located in the R80 district can become an Elo Masonry Institute by virtue of applying for a special use permit to the planning board. So it could be a castle, it could be a single-family dwelling, it could be a barn. And if it's legally existing in that R80 district and you meet the criteria of minimum 5 acres and 150 feet from a road or a lot line, upon planning board review, it would be permitted.
Well, it depends on what we determine eleemosynary is.
And that is the question.
And that's why you're here.
Correct.
Because we haven't determined what that is yet to you. I mean, it's a word in there, and it's tied to charity. But not every charity is an eleemosynary. So I think if we look a little deeper in the term, which again, we want to consider. So I want to look at all the information you have first that you can submit.
Like Ron mentioned, the issue here, planning board has their job. We have to be satisfied that all the tenets of an eleemosynary are met by the Positive Science Center, which is why we asked for this documentation. I'm going to open it up to any other board member. Do you have anyone have any comment?
Not at this time.
Questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, so do you have anything else, Ron?
No. just
No.
move on.
Do you have the list of what we're looking for, right?
Articles of incorporation, tax returns, federal, New York State for 2020, 2021, breakdown of donations, how that was done to the extent at which we can provide it, and then board members and their titles.
That is correct. And you said, how long do you think you're going to need to get that to us?
I will have it to you before your next workshop so that we can be placed on the next month's agenda if that is all possible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else from the board members and nothing else from Positive Science Center, I am going to close the public hearing on this application. And it is our understanding that you're going to submit the documents that we've requested, and we will review the documents, hopefully at our next workshop, and we will issue you a written decision on the
Excellent.
matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I
Thank you
appreciate
very
your
much.
time. Thank you. It was good to see everybody.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Good night.
Should I ask for a motion? Yeah. Mr. Ryder, before you leave, I just want to put a motion forth on this. Do we need we should
Yeah.
take a motion on this. Do we have a motion to close this public hearing
On this application.
on this application?
And it will be responded to.
Make that motion?
Do you have a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
So you'll have a response in writing as soon as we've reviewed your documentation.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
All right, do we have anything else before the board this evening? Vera? No, there's no minutes out. Okay, that said, do we have a motion to close?
I'll make that motion.
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
All right.
Good night, we'll see you in March.